Hello friends and music lovers, my name is Clive Swansbourne. Welcome to Piano Insights. Today we're going to be looking at the slow movement of the Pathetique Sonata by Beethoven, one of Beethoven's most justly beloved pieces. This piece is in A-flat major, which in the context of C minor is unusual. You'd expect probably the key of G major or E-flat major, but he chooses what's known as the flattened submedian. It means instead of going down from here and then going down to here for the slow movement, he goes from here to here, which is a much softer, much sort of gentler key. It's a beautiful transition from the sharper minor, the sort of more intense minor key, and all you're doing actually is changing one note to that, from the G here to create an A-flat major here. So it's just a tiny change, but it makes all the difference. It really warms up the atmosphere. In fact, the idea of this, I think, came from Mozart, and Beethoven was obviously very familiar with Mozart's C minor piano sonata. And in the Mozart piece, you get this tune in the very middle of this slow movement. Which obviously sounds a lot like this. The first three notes do. So I'm thinking that Mozart actually intended this as a homage to, that Beethoven intended this as a homage to Mozart's great masterpiece. Not that he was plagiarizing him or even forgetting that Mozart had written it. The difference is that in Beethoven's piece, the accompaniment is shared by the right hand. In other words, the melody and the accompaniment have to be played by the right hand, and therefore you get a balance problem. You've got to make sure it doesn't come out sounding like this. This is just dark and lumpy. You need the tune to sing out. A very good way of doing this, training your ear to tell the difference between what I just played and this, is to practice with both hands, playing the right hand, the melody, and the left hand playing as quiet as possible, the accompaniment. And then trying to get, maybe doing it a little bit at a time, and then going to, this is as close as I could get it right now. It could be even better than that though. That's better. The trick is to play this as quietly as possible, you see, and that is, to begin with, loudly. Make a big difference between the dynamics, and then you can soften it up later once you get the coordination. Not bad. A good way to practice is to just play the top one and touch the bottom one, you see, but without playing it, because that forces you to use a different technique for both, to play this one softer and slower. Actually, you're putting the finger down more slowly. I just touched it there. But you've got to, even putting it down more slowly means also arriving at the same time. You can't ever go, it's no good doing that. And eventually, you'll learn how to do that. And it's extremely necessary to play beautifully anything from this, this movement, and anything that has an accompaniment in the right hand. Or indeed, any kind of chordal playing. When you're voicing chords in general, if you have a chord like this, do you want it to sound like that, or do you want it to sound like really bringing out the top? This or this? You See? It's called voicing, and it's an essential part of the pianist's makeup. And sometimes, indeed, and in this piece also, I'll be showing how the voicing needs to be weighted to the lower part of the hand, but that's less common. Okay, so let's go into this theme. This one is a particularly tough one because it's got 3 notes in it, and it's easy to just go make it really thick. Play these notes really quietly. The left hand, while it's obviously part of the accompaniment, is really more of a counter melody. Melodic, the bass part there, so it's second in importance, and then this is really the filler of the harmony, which warm up the whole texture, has to be the quietest. Okay, so we come to, and notice how I was trying to shape the melody so that it's never just flat. You go, when this happens, you have a little bit of crescendo, drop down again a bit, and then make sure that these ones aren't swallowed. A lot of times you hear this. And that doesn't sing. You know, it's got to sing. Those low notes have to sing too. Make sure that comes out. And then this one here. Not. Sometimes, as I say, when you have a low note in a phrase, people miss it. They don't project the low notes as much, and then the low notes begin to sound like they're part of the harmony instead of part of the melody. All right, when we get to the staccatos here, don't make them too staccato. That's out of character. So if you're going to play them without pedal, and you could play them with pedal also, both ways work, I think. I think they've got to be more restrained. They're not so joyful or jolly. More sort of tentative almost. Or, on the other hand, you could do that as well. A sort of a pedal staccato you could do. But let's go for what he wrote there. And he doesn't give any pedal markings in this movement at all. He doesn't tell us where to pedal. So we got to sort of make it up as we go along. So when you get both hands playing the accompaniment, of course, you've got to be even lighter. It's like featherweight. These fingers should hardly be touching the string, almost like a gust, a breath of wind touching the string, an Aeolian harp. Almost no percussion at all. Just let these fingers just lightly graze the string, really. Another thing is, when you're doing a crescendo, don't overdo this crescendo. But don't do the crescendo in the accompaniment, otherwise the accompaniment will totally overwhelm. If you do this, it just gets too thick and too overblown. So only the crescendo in the melody, and so forth. And then we come to the next part. This melody finishes here. And then a rest. Make sure there's a silencer, because this is the next part of the piece. Get a nice leap there. Don't pedal that, although it doesn't sound like a leap. And a soprano. We're in F minor here. Actually, what I prefer here is for the, imagine an operatic soprano coming onto stage. The whole thing has moved up in the keyboard. The first half was down here, and then we're up here. We're a whole half keyboard away from where we were. So the atmosphere has changed, and this is much more operatic and more intense. Reach up for it, and then you're reaching down this time, so it's not so much that, but slightly different. You can use a different kind of dynamic there. And then this one builds intensity again. So that's the climax of intensity in that whole phrase. And then it starts to relax from that. That's a very bright sunshine there. And when you get to these, so when the bass, the whole music is coming in on itself in contrary motion, and you've got this lovely rising bass here with the chromatic rise, and you get and it's sort of crunching into it. That's where the climax is. And then here he ornaments this part. The skeleton should be, and you've got to get the ornaments without interrupting that skeleton. So it doesn't have to be really rushed. I hear people get into terrible fits of panic here and sort of do, they sort of think they have to play really fast. No. Now here we enter we've sort of had a ray of sunshine here, a bit of relaxation here, but then we enter really the sort of catacombs. This is the darkest part of the piece, the saddest maybe, if you like, because of these wailing figures. He takes that 3 times and repeats, and the saddest of all is the third one, as I'll show you. Into more comforting waters. So when you get these, the slurs always have to diminish on the second note, but not short. I mean, it's depending on the context. I mean, if it were a happy piece and it were, then it would be fine. But it's not happy, so you want these almost legato, really. The second note is quite long. And each one of them a little louder, which is, for a descending phrase like that, kind of not the expected thing, but dynamics are never what you expect in Beethoven. And the third one here, blurry pedal at the end of there. Make it as sad as you possibly can, as wailing as you possibly can. And here it comes back to the theme, and then we go into a triplet episode in A flat minor. By the way, when you get to the end of this, don't do this. You want to clear it out. New pedal, so that's on its own. Now you have to play these really almost as legato as you can get, because some of it's going to be pedalled and some of it isn't. And you don't want anything like this. On the change of pedals, you'll get those hiccups. So you have to hold them down as long as you can. So when you do change pedal, you're still holding, you see, and then you've got enough time to put the pedal down again. If you do it bouncy, that's going to happen. It's going to sound very hiccuped. And here, you have to match, you see, these. So they're both almost legato. It's not staccato, and it's certainly not pedaled. It's not. It sounds terribly blurry. So what he wants is, he has staccato with slurs over them, which means a long staccato, as long as you can get. What I would call sticchiato. I call them sticky staccatos. That's a very good climax. Don't be too loud, but it's definitely a climax. And we're in E major here. By the way, small hands can, if you have small hands which have trouble with the stretch here, you could do this. So, or take these. You could take those repeated notes with the other hand. There's nothing wrong with that. Use the most comfortable fingering to get the best sound. You're always trying to find the best way to get the musical effects that you want and the best control that you can get. Now here, a few measures on, I would say that these should be definitely nice and staccato, not pedaled. I've heard it done like that, even by famous pianists. I don't think it works. I think this is a bassoon. Imagine yourself a bassoon player. How fun that would be, and how sort of menacing it is almost. Mysterious. Crescendo. Make sure you don't go too thick in these, because this can be ruined if you get too thick with the chords. No, it's hopeless. So don't be too big in the crescendo, and make sure that these are the ones which are crescendo the least. Just the top and the bottom. And when we have here's the theme back again, and we got the triplets all the way through to the end now. Ever since they came in the A flat minor, we've got the triplets governing the rhythm. So this is the way I like to do this, and by all means, don't do it if you don't like it, or he doesn't mark any crescendos here, but I like this to be sort of climactic. It's the last time we've had this reiteration of this theme here, so. Here's another version of this. These are even more exposed. So to avoid a hiccup there. Now this is a part that a lot of people have trouble with because of the 4 against 3. going to work out how to do that. And the way to do it is to, first of all, if you're not an expert in 4 against 3, you've got to understand the rhythm is this. Together, right, left, right, together, right, left, right, left, right. That's a rhythm. It's a palindromic rhythm. It's if you write it down, it's a dotted 8th note, 16th note, two eighth notes, 16th note, dotted 8th note. So you can split it right down the middle. Dotted 8th note, 16th note, 2 8th notes, 16th note, dotted 8th note. Together, right, left, right, left, right. And you can put T for together and left and right and so forth underneath each note. And use that as a little guide to always go back to if you're having trouble with it. It won't take long to learn, but this, I've always found that kids that don't know how to do this, they immediately pick it up. And even adults, they pick it up. As long as they can do this exercise and stick to it for a day or two, or maybe 2 days or 3 days. So it won't take long. But it's better than doing this. Because what that is, together, right, left, together. It's actually just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just 6 against 3, which is easy. This is 6 against 3. This is 4 against 3. It's more complicated. Dum, da, dum, dum, da, dum, dum. All right, and the first thing to do after tapping it is to just use 2 notes. If you listen carefully, you'll see how even these are and how even these are. Exactly 4 even notes against 3 even notes. Then after that, add this. And then play the melody with 1 finger only. Don't play it with the fingering, otherwise you'll get into the bad old habits of playing it like that, you see. So it's got to be with the 1 finger because you're used to doing it with 1 finger. And then only after that, you're listening very carefully when you're using the fingering that you're used to, add it and get the rhythm right. And if you're ending up going and you're not sure, then just go back to square one again. It's the best thing to do. The crescendos here, make sure you don't crescendo too soon. Here, think legato on these. Try to play them as close as you can. Not only to be able to change pedal out of the chord, not only because of that, but because of the quietness you can achieve just by never leaving the note, you see. It's very tempting to do. That's not right. And then the crescendo. Here again. Stay soft, then a crescendo. And then longer diminuendo this time. Now this part, I hear so many famous pianists doing this. Very warm and cuddly and pretty, but not nearly as interesting or expressive as this. With that phrasing, you see. Pianists just tend to put the pedal down a lot where they shouldn't. And Beethoven asks for this very specific phrasing for a reason. And I think if a violinist or any other instrumentalist except a pianist were playing this, they would follow the phrasing. So that is the second movement of the Pathetique. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in future videos. Please share and subscribe and press a like, and see you next time. Bye bye.